Hey everyone, Brian Davis here from Spark Rental. Excited to be with you today, and I'm excited to have Jay Helms with us. Jay is the co-founder of W2 Capital, a hard money lender and investment company. Lets you invest in hard money loans in addition to real estate investments. He also works with several real estate investing masterminds, teaches investors how to consistently earn money. So, Jay, welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us.
Brian, thank you for having me. I learned
Absolutely.
something before we even joined this, that Peru has their own standard time zone.
Well, yeah, and you know what's going to change here is in a few days, the U.S. is going to change their clocks, and Peru is not.
Ah,
So I'm going to go from being on Central Time in the U.S. to being on Eastern Time in the U.S. Uh,
we should all just strive to be Arizona. That's we just need to be, they're leading the charge. I don't know why people aren't following them. But anyway, we're not here to talk about time zones.
well,
Sorry.
yeah, no, hey, I love it. So, Jay, I love to start these conversations just asking how you got into real estate investing in the first place, because we
Yeah.
all have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, what was that somewhere for you?
Yeah, so it was man, it was about 10 years ago. This we just, had a trifecta of life events that was pushing me down a path to do something differently. I had a, standard W2. I ended up ending my career, in the W2 world after about 20 years. I got pushed out, got laid off during COVID, which has been the biggest blessing ever. And then but prior, 10 years prior to that, the company I was a principal at, a little startup, it got acquired. The acquisition was going horribly. I got married a few months before the acquisition happened. So big life event there. And then a few months after the acquisition happened, we found out that we were expecting our first child, right?
Oh, wow.
And so three big things. I principal of this company, worked there for 4 or 5 years, no, a little bit longer than that. So kind of, I was employee number five, poured my heart and soul into it. Owners sold it off. It was a train wreck. There's a lot of emotions that when you get married, you don't really know that exist. And then when you start finding out you're about to have a kid, there's even more emotions that you don't realize and
Oh,
that
yeah.
exist. And so I just kind of got tired of living paycheck to paycheck. I was like, I started Googling how do rich people get rich? Right. Ultimately led me down the path of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then we
The little
closed
purple
our,
book.
yeah, the little purple Bible for us real
It's a
estate
classic for
investors.
a reason.
And ultimately that led us, my wife and I, to close on our first rental property when our firstborn was 3 weeks old.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah,
Well, when
yeah,
it
it
rains,
was,
it pours, right?
yeah, it's been a wild ride, but it has afforded us the life that we now have. And financial, it's funny. I feel like I work more now, but it doesn't feel like work, right? Because we're basically financial free and we're nomads and we get to go wherever. Haven't made it down to Peru. This is like a new thing for us, and with young kids, I'm a little hesitant to travel outside the states, but
Don't
a lot
be
of people tell
hesitant.
me I'm crazy. Yeah, there you go.
It's no harder than traveling around the U.S.
Yeah.
Seriously.
All
Yeah.
right. I keep hearing that. I'm going to pay attention to it one day.
I mean, granted, we only have one, and as,
Yeah.
as my friend back home likes to say, one is like none, and two is like 10, and beyond that, it's all just a circus in the
Yeah.
background.
One is nothing, Brian. One is nothing. No, one's a challenge. Three, there are 9, 6, and 4. And so I don't know. Maybe we're crazy. I don't know.
You're not crazy, but I
I
I
don't
love that
know.
you guys have crossed over into the nomadic lifestyle. Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been amazing. Last couple of years have been truly, truly amazing. So
Well, just as a quick aside, where have you guys been as nomads?
yeah, so we have this thing where of course we got the map of the US, so we're picking off those states as we go through, but we have if we have a meaningful event or spend the night in a state, then we get to color it in, right? And
Yeah,
so we
yeah, yeah.
have done half the US. And so
That's great.
Midwest, Northeast, spent a lot of time this last summer in Colorado and Montana and Utah. Summer before that, we were in the Northeast, loving us some Maine and Vermont. And, we live in Florida half of the year now. So we get our beach time in the Emerald Coast. So it's amazing. It's amazing. We'll eventually get tired of and we drive everywhere, right? So it's a little bit challenging, but it's I think we'll eventually get tired of driving, and then we'll fly to wherever, and then I think we'll get the passports and start hopping over the line.
Well, let me know when you're ready to go overseas, and I'll give you some
Okay,
recommendations. We've lived
absolutely.
all over the world and traveled most of it, or a lot of it.
That's
So,
awesome.
all right. Well, anyway, got sidetracked by the
Yeah,
siren
yeah,
call of travel there. It's a huge passion of mine, as you can tell.
yeah.
But real estate is also a passion of mine. So you bought your first rental property 9 years ago, it sounds like. And how have you scaled up since then with your real estate investments? Like what
Yeah,
has changed for you?
the quick answer is I got open to partnerships. Came open to, I'm even to this day, my wife will laugh when I say I have trouble asking for help. And she's like, that's such an understatement. Like you don't, yeah, you know. And so, but I started looking around and seeing how these folks were scaling, and it wasn't just one person that was being interviewed or one person in a blog post. There was multiple. And I'm like, all right, where are those people in my circle? And I didn't have any, and that was one of the big things that I had to get comfortable with is knowing how to ask for help. The second thing is knowing how to receive it,
Yeah.
right? And so that's been the biggest. If I can go back and look, and even my wife, I consider her a pivotal partner in our growth, because she's where I'm more conservative. She's more, I wouldn't say pushing the envelope, but she's more, she has a what's the phrase I like to say is she has a clearer sharp, she's smarter than me. Let me just put it that way. She's smarter than me. And so she really pushes me to think differently and transparently. One of the things that frustrates me about our relationship is um I'll be grinding on an issue or really thinking about a property. Hey, what can we do here? What can we do here? And I'll do that for weeks. And I'll go to her, explain her the situation, and instantly she gives me the most brilliant answer. And it's the most frustrating thing that I have to endure. But I'm glad, and I'm learning. And I'm learning that I don't need to grind on that for weeks. Just she's really smart. Just initially go to her. Like, hey, here's the
Well,
deal.
it's not always the easiest thing to ask people for help, and it's often it doesn't even occur to you to.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something I struggle with as well. A lot of time people who are entrepreneurial, they got there because they're kind of mavericks or free spirits or independent, right?
Mad scientist is the term I like to
Yeah,
use these days.
yeah. You're used to kind of just getting things done yourself, and that makes it really hard to scale and grow and bring other people in and form partnerships and
Yeah.
to hire employees, and to ask for help. It's something that I struggle with too. So I totally sympathize. Half the time, it doesn't even occur to me to go out and ask
Ask
for
for
help.
help. Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you end up banging your head against the wall when someone else could have just given you the answer in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
totally sympathize with that. Anyway, we
Yeah.
interrupted your train of thought there.
And I have no idea where I was going with that, but yeah, just partnerships is the biggest thing that's helped us scale. And I let me think back where I was trying to go. And so being you're in Peru, there's I don't know how many local meetups there are for U.S. based real estate investors. And when I was when we had closed a couple properties, I'm an introvert by personality type. Now I'm growing out of that. Entrepreneurship would definitely push you out of that. Matter of fact, I'm going to have coffee with a couple of investors I've never met before Thursday morning. And I'm super excited about it. And that is not normally I'm like nervous and trying to figuring out an excuse to get out of it, right? But now I'm excited to do that. But when we first started doing this, I was total introvert, didn't want to go anywhere, and so I basically started up a virtual meetup using Zoom. Right, this is back in 2018 before anybody really knew what Zoom was, and that community has really grown, and not only that, but some of my best friends and partners are in that group, right? And it's because I got to know them. And one thing I like to talk about when we're talking about real estate investing is, you know, you can look up a million podcasts on it, establishing your investing criteria. Nobody's ever really talked about establishing your partnership criteria, right? And I think it's hugely important, especially, there's that saying, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership, right? And I think that is true when people go outside their partnership criteria. And if you don't have a partnership criteria, you're out of it already. You're way, who knows where you are, right? You don't, and you should. And so that's one thing I like to talk to people about is, I think the way to grow is through partnerships, but you got to know who you're willing to partner with, right?
Well, they say that business partnerships are just like a marriage without the sex, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
but when people are dating and they're looking for a life partner, they typically do have a somewhat clear sense of the broad type of person that they want,
Yep.
right? So, it's the same thing in a business relationship. You need to get really intentional about the kind of people who you want to partner with and what your, like you said, your criteria for partnership, because not everyone is an appropriate partner for you, right?
Not everyone is an appropriate partner, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I totally get that. So, tell us about some of the partnerships that you have been working on. You've been building.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've done, as far as partnership concerns, there I think I can check all the boxes. We've been a general partner, we've been limited partners, currently active in a joint venture, in two joint ventures. One is 16 unit apartment complex, the other one is the hard money lending that we were talking about earlier, and or probably before we were recording. And so all of those I've learned, some things along the way, and just kind of give you a brief overview of my partnership criteria. Number one, I know, Brian, you're probably the same way, but when people find out who you are and what you do, they're like, hey, I want to partner with you on a deal, right? Or I'll get, at least once a week, I'll get a message in one of the direct message social media platforms. Hey, I got this deal, I want to partner with you on it. Like, who are you? Like, we're connected, but I don't know you. And so one of the things I've just had to make this rule is, I've got to know you for at least 6 months, right? And
Yeah.
that usually pushes the tire kickers out of the way, meaning that when somebody messaged me and I said, look, I'm happy to look at this property with you, I just want you to know that I don't partner with anybody then unless I really know them for at least 6 months. And so, I'll go ahead and tell them, I said, that doesn't mean we get on a phone call today and we get on a second phone call in 6 months. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, I need to get to know you. And most every time, 99% of the time, yeah, that's great. Hey, uh, when can we get on a call? And I'll tell them, and they never schedule it. Right. And so it filters those folks out. So I got to get to know you. I really get to know you. The second thing, and this is probably the more controversial one, is if somebody's been divorced more than twice, I won't partner with them. And there's two reasons why. Either A, and back to your marriage example, right? But either A, they don't know how to make good decisions when it comes to people, or B, they don't know how to treat other people. And neither one of those do I need to mess with, right? I give everybody a pass. They make a mistake, they get married young because of certain reasons, whatever. But if it happens again, and then it happens again, it's like there's a
There's a common
pattern, almost
denominator.
there's a trend there that I don't think I need to get involved in. And not only do I not want to deal with whatever drama may be coming from that partner, but if they're married and they go through a split up or they get divorced and you're still partners on a deal, that complicates a lot of things, I imagine, on the back end. So I just try to stay away from I don't try. I stay away from folks like that.
No, I get it. And honestly, if I were a single person today, and I'm not, of course, but if,
Yeah.
if I were and I were out in the dating scene, it would make me very nervous to date someone who had been divorced more than twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Uh,
Should be.
yes. So no, I get that. I get
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
So you're a hard money lender.
Yep.
That's correct.
That is
And
one of our income streams, I
right,
should
in
say.
addition to
Yeah.
being a sponsor, a GP doing real estate syndication deals. So you raise money for these hard money loans from passive investors, LPs?
Correct. Yeah, we have a pool of private lenders, and we're always looking for private lenders, and basically, this hard money lending business basically was born out of our community because we have so many calls every month where we get on Zoom or whatnot, and we're chatting, and I kept hearing folks in the community complain about, hey, I got this really great deal, but I don't know how to navigate private or hard money. They were scared of it or whatnot. And I was like, all right, there's an opportunity here. And so I partnered with a couple of guys who were some of the original members of the community. And we created this business. And basically, we've all got connections, and we keep building those connections, right? Of people who want to be more passive and still be in first lien position, and they're okay with our underwriting. And so it is extremely passive for them, and especially since we service the loan for most of them. Some of them choose for us not to do, which is fine. But basically, they have one action. You could say two. They have the first action is to make sure they wire the money at closing, right, for the purchase, and the second action is just to make sure we're doing what we said we're going to do, and they get those monthly distributions. So it's extremely passive for them.
Out of curiosity, what kind of interest or fees or what are you paying out your passive investors for these hard money loans?
Yeah, so we're in this is October 2023. So just timestamp it, right? So we'll see where this
Yeah.
goes in
Because
the
this
future.
episode will probably not air for another couple months.
Yeah, and so right now it's anywhere. It depends on the deal, it depends on the borrower, but it's anywhere from 10 to 12%.
All right, and here's a question. So Denny and I recently talked to a hard money lender.
Yeah,
Because we run a real estate investment club, and every month we vet deals, and we all group our money together to invest in deals
nice.
as a club. Um, and we've considered investing in hard money loans and investing money with hard money lenders before, but I have yet to find a compelling reason to do so rather than just spreading money on the ground floor at like
Yeah,
20-30 bucks a loan across thousands of loans.
yeah,
um, because there is risk involved, of course,
yeah,
and a certain percentage of those loans are going to default. So the idea of investing a lot of money in any one loan makes me uncomfortable, given
sure.
that there is going to be a percentage of those that default. So but if you spread out the money across thousands of loans, then it becomes predictable, right? You're going to
Yeah,
have
you're
a default rate, and you can just bake that into your final return calculations.
correct.
um, so make that case to us.
Yeah,
Why should people invest money with you in a hard money loan, potentially a lot of money in a single loan, as
yeah,
opposed to spreading it across a whole bunch of different loans?
yeah. So great question. One of the things that you got to understand is our average loan is about 200,000, right? So depending on where that is, and the guys who are our private money lenders on the back end, that's not a lot of money to them, right? Anyone. So I think it is not for everybody, but a lot of them, there's here's one thing. Let me go down this. I haven't been asked this question, so let me formulate this answer. um,
I got other questions for you if you want to
no, no, no,
come
no.
back to this in 2 minutes from now.
No, I don't want to dodge it. Basically, here's what happens on, let's say that 200,000, right? So we will do up to, at the moment, we do up to 90% of the purchase price, right? So the borrower is putting 10% down. He's also paying for all the closing fees and in broker fees and origination fees. And they have to have money to start the rehab on their project.
Right, for the
Okay.
first draw before they
For the
start getting
first draw.
reimbursed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So then our lender is you keeping the rehab portion of that money in a money market account that's probably earning about 5%, say, today, right? But they are being paid on, let's say that 200,000, they only loaned 120,000 for the purchase, and the other 80 is for, or other 70, whatever, round numbers, right? The other 80 will be held back for rehab draws. The borrower is going to pay on the full 200,000. right? The moment we close, their first monthly payment is going to be somewhere around $2,000. So our lender, they've only issued out 120,000 for the purchase. The remaining 80 is sitting in a money market account where it's earning 5%, right? So technically, the lender themselves, they're earning
Interest
12
on two
on
places.
correct. They're
Right.
essentially double dipping, right? So they're
Yeah.
getting 17% on their money, plus they get typically it's around a point of origination at closing. So
Ah,
you're above 17%. I don't know a lot of funds that offer 17%. You
no,
know,
okay. That was a great answer,
okay. I
so
passed.
you
I
made
hope.
a good case. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I have my own personal money, some of it invested in ground floor, and again, it's spread across thousands of loans.
Right.
Uh, but when you invest in ground floor loans, you do not get the fees. That's what ground floor earns,
Gotcha.
right? They
I
get
didn't
the
know that.
fees, and of course, you're not getting that double dip interest either. So I typically earn like 9 to 10% on those loans
Yeah.
total. Um, and I feel pretty confident about the risk factor because there's
It's
just a
spread
certain percent of
across.
them that are going to default, and that is what it is.
Yep.
It's just baked in. So all right, so you made a good case. You get the fee and you get the double dip interest.
Yep.
Awesome. And so, what kind of real estate investments are you guys doing? Are you guys raising money as general partners for right now?
Um, those have been slim and few and far between right now. Just the case of the market. There were some folks who got a majority of the folks, and usually it's multifamily properties, right? We haven't done one of those in a couple years. The last one we did was a joint venture because that's where the numbers made sense. It didn't make sense as actual syndication, and the there was where was I going with that? There was a lot of people who got really excited about 3 and 4 caps, and it was just kind of forced the market to, I think, is going to implode. And we're starting to see some of those in the last couple of years. They're coming up on their refinance, and where they locked it in at 2 and 3%, now they're ballooning up to 8. They're not going to cash flow. They're not going to be able to hit distributions, and ultimately they're going to try to sell them, and they're going to have to sell them at a discount. And we're starting to see some of that already. Matter of fact, I was talking to a guy yesterday who is part of it's a 12 or 16 unit, and they're getting ready to hand over the deed in lieu of foreclosure because of that
Ah,
very same thing. And so it's just one of those things where I always wondered um, how so many people drowned on the Titanic. Right. I'm going to take a 180 on here, but there were a lot of people who were running on that ship saying, "Hey, we're sinking. We're sinking. You guys need to put on a life jacket. At least just put on a life jacket." No, we're not sinking, man. The sky's the limit. We're gonna go, go. And I correlate that to what the real estate industry's been doing the last couple of years in the multifamily space, especially in that there were a lot of folks, including myself, and I was a little early, right? I was a little early saying, "Hey, we're not doing, we're not doing anything. We're sinking. Things are going to pop." And everybody's like, "No, man, you're wrong. You're totally wrong." It's like, I hope I am, but it turns out I'm not. I was early, but I was not wrong. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that unless the Fed steps in and plummets the interest rates as fast as they took them up.
yeah, and we have seen a rise in distressed sales in multifamily. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, I am personally not a fan of timing the market. I do
Yeah,
dollar cost averaging, where every month I just invest the same amount of money in new real estate deals, new stock investments.
yep,
Um, but yeah, there is I mean, you can see the market movement. It's been ugly to real estate over the last year and a half, 2 years.
yeah,
Since the beginning of 2022, when interest rates just skyrocketed.
yeah,
So you've seen cap rates go up. You've seen defaults on loans go up. You're seeing sponsors in trouble now. The people who
yeah,
did not themselves adequately and who did not underwrite their deals conservatively enough. We're
yeah.
seeing it. So yeah, I
We
think they're
are.
finding opportunities. Uh,
Well, I don't know because I've had this conversation with a couple of people, and I'd like to get your take on it. And because one of the things we've been talking about is, all right, to save this whole thing, save this whole machine, interest rates need to drop, right? And I'm thinking, well, true, but if interest rates drop and there's still no new supply, for the demand, what's that going to do to the prices for the properties that are out there, right? I think we're going to jack back up to like 3 and 4 caps, and they just don't make sense. But what's your take? If interest rates were to drop, let's say we get around 5, maybe 6%, what do you think that's going to do to the market?
Well, I mean, for the Fed to start cutting interest rates, the economy needs to get into some trouble, right? I mean, everyone's been forecasting a recession for several years now, and it just hasn't happened. So,
is it because they keep printing money?
Still at 3.6% right now. So, the fact that it would take a recession for the Fed to cut interest rates means that the recession becomes part of that conversation about what's going on in the market, right? So, I don't know.
That's a better answer. I mean, I'm no economist, and obviously I'm looking at my crystal ball. That's where I get my answers from. And so, but I'm with you. I don't necessarily, I think you're smarter than me because you can sit back and say, I don't know, where I feel like I have to give my opinion,
Well, here's what I will say about that is that every time that I've tried to get clever with my investments and time the market or pick and choose individual stocks or do any of those like I'm so clever kind of maneuvers, think that I'm smarter than everyone else out there, I get served a huge slice of humble pie by the universe. So now I just dollar cost average, with my stocks, I just dollar cost average into index funds. With my real estate, I just dollar cost average into different real estate syndication deals across many different types of properties, many different geographical markets, many different sponsors, knowing that some of those are going to not do well, right? And some of them are going to do great. And most of them will just be kind of somewhere in the middle of that bell curve. And it's all going to even out in the end. But,
gotcha.
If we do have a recession, recessions are typically kind to rents, or at least rents don't usually drop in recessions. Now, they actually have dropped in some markets over the last year, but that's unusual. Normally, the risk in recessions to multifamily is higher vacancy rates, higher default rates, and evictions and turnover rates. All of which are expensive to multifamily operators, and which impact the NOI, right? So that's going to also reduce values there. So I don't see the ship riding within the next 2 years, really. I mean, if I'm gonna gaze into my crystal ball, which I just said we shouldn't gaze into the crystal ball.
It's so tempting, though. It's so tempting.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't mind investing in deals every month right now because those deals will probably not sell for another 5 years.
Yeah.
And I don't see it being a great market for selling multifamily real estate syndications for at least 3 years from now, maybe longer. So when I'm looking at deals, I like to see longer term financing, which is not always available, but low interest. Like we did a deal in our club a month or two back where the sponsor was assuming a loan at like 4% interest, and it had like 9 years remaining on it. And I was like, that's perfect. That right there is exactly what I want to see.
I don't know what the rest of it looks like, but that would spark my interest for sure.
Well, exactly, because that gives them plenty of runway for the market to do all kinds of terrible things and then recover, which at some point in the next 9 years, I have no doubt that the market will recover. But will it recover in 3 years from now, in 5 years from now, in 7 years from now? I don't know.
Who knows?
But 9 years, that's probably enough runway, right?
Yeah.
So
no, that's good.
Anyway,
was it interest only?
Went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there.
No, I'm curious though. Was it interest only for 10 years?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember. This was actually, it was a fund that was buying several hotels, actually. Gotcha. Hotels that were right next to a big military base and just had plenty of ongoing demand. It was a non-sexy kind of investment. These were what they call select service hotels. So these are not like resorts or anything fancy. It was just corporate travelers, business travelers, contractors, military contractors, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
But which is very steady, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they basically have the same occupancy rates month in, month out, year in, year out.
It's basically Section 8 without the troublesome tenant, because I mean it's backed by the government, right? If you're dealing with
Exactly.
government contractors, so it's good. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, but the point being that the financing on that deal made me very happy, and to me that made the deal. And we have invested in deals with shorter financing. Those just make me a little bit more nervous because it is unclear in this moment when the market will recover. It will recover at some point, and I think these real estate syndication deals, many of which have a 4, 5, 7 year time horizon, that is enough time for the market to recover, most likely. But the problem is a lot of these sponsors are getting like 2 or 3 year loans, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of that loan term, yes, they can usually be extended for a year or two longer, but your interest rate cap is toast at that point, right?
Yeah.
So if interest rates continue rising, or if they stay elevated for the next 3 years, then that's a risk, right? You are taking
Yeah.
on that interest rate risk in a way that you don't when you're assuming a low interest loan with 9 years remaining on it.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's good.
Anyway, Jay, how can people connect with you if they are interested in learning about what you guys are up to, investing in some of your real estate syndication deals, or investing with you as a hard money lender, or maybe borrowing
Yeah.
from you?
Yeah. Yeah. All of the above apply. And the best social I'm most active on is LinkedIn. And so it's just LinkedIn. Just look for me, Jay Helms, on there. You'll see some W2 Capitalist stuff. Or if you want to check out what we've got going on in the W2 Capitalist community, it's just w2capitalist.com. So
Awesome. Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining us today. It was super fun. We hope to have you back soon. And guys, if you enjoy these conversations that we have, please rate, review the podcast. Give us an honest review. We can take it. But please, that 30 seconds that it takes you to leave a review makes the world of difference to us. So
I love
thank
it.
you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Same place, same time. Catch you on the
Thanks,
flip side.
Brian.